Dak Prescott signing the franchise tag kind of sent me down this crazy rabbit hole where, Dak's making over $30 million next year. And I had to ask myself, okay, which quarterbacks in the NFL would I be comfortable and would I want to pay $30 million? There's that line, $30 million. There's not really many quarterbacks that want to pay more than that. And, it's kind of crazy. There's a massive problem right now in the NFL where a ton of quarterbacks, so many quarterbacks, are making way more money than I would pay them and than I think they deserve. I'd call it an epidemic. If there wasn't a real actual pandemic in the NFL, I wouldn't feel as bad saying there's an epidemic in the NFL. Quarterbacks are making too much money, too much of the salary cap. And so what I did, I'm going to rank the quarterbacks based on what I'd pay them. I'm going to go through the list of who I would, based on the talent. I'm going to rank their talent and then say the talent has to match up with how much they're making. Here's how I would rank them. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, why I think so many of them are overpaid. And I want to start by saying I made a list. I came up with 38 names. 38 names. Who would I pay, of these 38 names, who would I pay $30 million to? Now, I crossed off a lot of quarterbacks' names. I crossed off all the quarterbacks who were drafted in the last 3 quarterback classes. That's 2020, 2019, 2018. These are guys like Sam Darnold, Dwayne Haskins, Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Drew Lock, all the rookie quarterbacks, Justin Herbert. It's too early to judge Justin Herbert and list him in rankings in the NFL quarterback. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's too early for those guys to be in this conversation. Give them another year or two to figure it out. Maybe Sam Darnold, maybe Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's a fringe quarterback. We'll talk about him, more on him later. But I left those younger quarterbacks out of the list. I also didn't include Marcus Mariota or Cam Newton. I didn't see enough of them last year. I don't know where they really rank. I have no idea how good they are. I haven't dove into their film. I don't know. And so who would I pay of those guys left? Who would I pay $30 million or more to? These are quarterbacks that can win a ton, no matter what is around them. These are elite quarterbacks that you can afford to pay them more money, because if you pay your quarterback a ton of money, you got to be able to win with less talent around you. These quarterbacks can still do that. These are the best of the best. And to be clear, if you don't know what elite is, if you're not sure whether a quarterback is elite, a great example is Dak Prescott. If you're like, is Dak an elite quarterback? If you have to ask that question, it's no. You shouldn't have to think about it. The 4 names I'm going to list, the 4 elite quarterbacks, in my opinion, in the NFL, were guys that I immediately went, yep, elite, 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 bang. It should be obvious. If you have to pause or aren't sure, it's no. The 4 names I came up with are Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, and Carson Wentz. These are the 4 quarterbacks, in my opinion, that are worth $30 million or more and are elite. I think Patrick Mahomes speaks for himself. Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson are ridiculously talented and really underappreciated, in my opinion. What stands out to me is the ability by Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson to win and make the playoffs and do very well, even with a bad offensive line. People have no idea how hard that is. Most quarterbacks cannot overcome having a bad offensive line, and Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, they both can. Carson Wentz is also elite. He should have been the NFL MVP 2 years ago, maybe it's 3 years ago. The year that they won the Super Bowl, Carson Wentz got hurt. Nick Foles ended up winning the Super Bowl instead of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz would have won the MVP if he'd played the final 2 games of the year and been healthy. Now, last year, the fact that the Eagles made the playoffs is just a miracle, in my opinion. Carson Wentz was throwing to nobodies and still made the playoffs, still did well. Carson Wentz is elite. I don't understand. I mean, there were so many injuries. There's so many receivers that got hurt last year, and Carson Wentz still found a way to be really, really special. And I think it says so much, and people don't seem to appreciate that. I don't get it. But again, my top-tier quarterbacks, guys I would pay $30 million or more to: Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and Carson Wentz. That's it. Those are the only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL I would give $30 million or more to. So who's next? Now, Lamar Jackson's on the fringe, in my opinion. Lamar Jackson is on the fringe of being a $30 million guy. I want to see him play at an elite level for another year before I give him $30 million. I think he's going to. I think next year, after this year, I'd be pretty comfortable giving him that money. I believe that Lamar Jackson's going to get even better this year as a passer, which is crazy to think. Lamar Jackson just won the NFL MVP, and he's still got room to grow. He's still getting better. So Lamar Jackson is that fifth guy, kind of right on the fringe. But those are the four elite quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson's right there, kind of in between. Now, these are my second-tier quarterbacks, guys I would pay $20 to $25 million to. And these are guys who really are good, but they need some help. And I really need to have more salary cap to get them better teammates so I can try to win a Super Bowl with these guys. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Big Ben, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins. Notice Dak Prescott's on the list. I am not a hater of Dak Prescott. I just wouldn't pay him $30 million. I think currently Dak Prescott belongs in the same conversation as Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, guys like that who are very good, but they need help in order to get over the hump and win a Super Bowl. First, let's talk about Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady's very simple. He literally needed to leave New England because he needed better teammates to win. Says enough to me. Tom Brady, love him. He's my favorite quarterback ever. He's a second-tier quarterback at this point in his career. Pay him $20 to $25 million. Drew Brees is the same way. I love Drew Brees. I've read his book, Coming Back Stronger. He's like the gold standard. I love him. But in the last 3 years, look at Drew Brees. He's had incredible teams and hasn't won a Super Bowl. Hasn't even made a Super Bowl in the last 3 years. Drew needs help. He hasn't gotten it done. Even though I love Drew Brees, I'm not giving Drew Brees $30 million. I got to pay people around him so I can still win with Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers is another guy here. The deciding factor for me, this is going to make people very mad. Why are you saying Aaron Rodgers isn't an elite quarterback? The deciding factor for me was the way that he handled the 49ers defense. Go watch last year. Go watch how Russell Wilson played the 49ers. Go watch how Patrick Mahomes played against the 49ers. Russell Wilson almost beat them. He held his own. I think it might have actually, if I look back, did he beat the 49ers? Or was it like, I can't remember. He either beat the 49ers or it came down to like the final play and he almost beat the 49ers. My point is, Russell Wilson held his own against the 49ers. And when Aaron Rodgers played against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, he got embarrassed. It was bad. It was ugly. And 2 weeks later, Patrick Mahomes played against the 49ers defense, did pretty well, held his own. Wasn't pretty, found a way to win, made it work. And so if Aaron Rodgers can get embarrassed by the same defense that Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes hold their own against, I'm not putting Aaron Rodgers in the same category as them. Sorry. I know it's going to make people mad, but I'm not doing it. Rodgers is good. He's a good quarterback. Give him $20, $25 million. He's not elite. Packers fans are yelling at me. I'm so sorry, Tom Grossi. I'm sure you're mad too. I hope we can still be friends. People keep saying, Packers fans keep saying, Aaron Rodgers just needs a good receiver. He's got Devontae Adams. He's got a good defense. And if you're saying Aaron Rodgers needs more help, that's my point exactly. Stop paying him so much money. Take a pay cut, and you might be okay. Last year, Aaron Rodgers had a good offensive line, good running game, a good defense, and came up short. And you know why the Packers couldn't trade for DeAndre Hopkins when DeAndre Hopkins clearly, I don't know if the Packers really had a chance to trade for him. This might be kind of a cheap shot. I don't mean it that way. But even if the Packers had wanted DeAndre Hopkins, they can't pay him. Try to trade for him. You can't afford him because they're too busy paying Aaron Rodgers the moon. So I believe the Packers are paying Aaron Rodgers too much. People are mad at me, but it's true. Now, the other guys in this tier are Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Big Ben, Kirk Cousins. They're all good quarterbacks. I'd pay them $25 million. They still need good teammates. The other guy is Matt Stafford. Matthew Stafford is here too. And I love Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford is criminally underappreciated. I think Matthew Stafford might be... I probably didn't do him a service mentioning him at the end of this tier, because he probably belongs at the top of the tier. But I'm still not going to pay Matthew Stafford $30 million a year. He hasn't been able to win a lot in Detroit. Now, I think some of that is that he's been a victim of a bad organization. It's not entirely fair, but he hasn't been able to overcome that either. He hasn't won. He made a lot of money, and he hasn't been able to elevate bad teammates around him. Not entirely his fault. It's not fair. But to me, that's still not an elite quarterback. Russell Wilson had no offensive line. Deshaun Watson, no offensive line. Carson Wentz, no receivers. Like literally nothing. He's thrown to a brick wall. And the brick wall still found a way to succeed. I mean, Matthew Stafford has had bad teammates, been on bad teams, yada, yada. But some quarterbacks can overcome that. Matthew Stafford has never done that. Therefore, Matthew Stafford, in my opinion, is a second-tier quarterback. I don't think that's a hard argument to make. A lot of people probably agree with that. But, if I overpay Matthew Stafford, I can't pay his teammates. Now, Phillip Rivers is on the fringe of the second tier. I don't know whether Phillip Rivers is a tier 2 quarterback or a tier 3 quarterback below that. I got to watch film. At some point, I'm going to dive into the film of Phillip Rivers and, figure out how good Phillip Rivers really is. I know he's not elite. And I just don't know whether he belongs in the same tier as Derek Carr or Drew Brees and Tom Brady. I don't know. And the film will determine that later down the road. Now, my third tier is guys made up of guys who I would give $10 to $15 million a year. And these are starting quarterbacks, but they're lower end starting quarterbacks. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of help to win. To win a Super Bowl, that is. These are guys like, here's a list. It's Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Tannehill. I would not pay Ryan Tannehill as much money he's making. I think he's massively overpaid. I wouldn't give Ryan Tannehill $30 million a year. No way. Derek Carr, Nick Foles, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Tyrod Taylor, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, I think most people are going to argue with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jared Goff. People are going to say, what the heck? Tier 3? 49ers fans are furious. They're going to say, Tier 3? Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying he's awful. I'm just saying I'd pay him $10 to $15 million a year because he needs a lot of help. Did you watch the Super Bowl? Anybody watch my film analysis of the Super Bowl? How many opportunities Jimmy Garoppolo had and missed? George Kittle, wide open, doesn't see him. What is he looking at? I have no idea. A lot of people are going to say, well, Jared Goff lost a Super Bowl and Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl. So did Rex Grossman. You can lose a Super Bowl and not be a special elite quarterback. Rex Grossman wasn't even a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo aren't franchise quarterbacks, but they're on the lower end of the spectrum. I would not pay either guy $30 million, and I really would not be comfortable paying them $20 to $25 million either. Jared Goff is massively, massively overpaid. I think worse than Ryan Tannehill. At least Ryan Tannehill makes plays. Ryan Tannehill, love him or hate him, he might be like 1 for 7, but that one pass he completed was on 3rd and 17 in the fourth quarter on the last play of the game. Like, Ryan Tannehill is massively overpaid, but at least he shows up when he needs to. Jared Goff, can you say the same? I can. I think Jared Goff is the most overpaid quarterback in the entire NFL. Actually, that's not true. I forgot to mention Jacoby Brissett. Did you know Jacoby Brissett next year is making $27.98 million? What the heck? Oh my gosh. That's crazy to me. So based on my metric, my ranking, pretty much every NFL quarterback is overpaid. And I believe that. I think every NFL quarterback is overvalued. That's not true. Overvalued is the wrong word there. Overpaid is true. I understand why quarterbacks are overpaid. Teams have no chance to win in the NFL if you don't have a starting quarterback. You have to have a starting quarterback to make it in the NFL. And I called, when Teddy Bridgewater signed a $20 million a year contract with the Carolina Panthers, I came out and said, that's a good deal. I like that. Because even though I think he's paid probably $5 million more then I would give Teddy Bridgewater, hey, $5 million and you got a steady, stable franchise quarterback. And in comparison to who's being more overpaid, Teddy Bridgewater or Jared Goff, Jared Goff is way more overpaid than Teddy Bridgewater. So in comparison, yeah, Teddy Bridgewater's being overpaid, but in relation to how much other people are being overpaid, Teddy Bridgewater, it's a solid deal. Now, these are the 10 highest paid quarterbacks in 2020. Number 1 is Russell Wilson. He's making $35 million a year. Deserved. Love it. Believe in that. Big Ben is making $34 million. Aaron Rodgers is making $33.5 million. Jared Goff, also $33.5 million. The 4th highest paid quarterback in the NFL next year, Jared Goff, making the same amount of money as Aaron Rodgers, making more than Tom Brady? Drew Brees? Are you kidding me? No way. Kirk Cousins is making $33 million. Carson Wentz is making $32 million a year. Solid. Dak Prescott making $30.1. I already talked about that, but whatever. Matt Ryan, $30 million a year. Ryan Tannehill, $29.5. And Jacoby Brissett. Who would have thought stinking Jacoby Brissett is the 10th highest paid quarterback next year in the NFL? $27.98 million next year. I didn't even, when I made my list of quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett wasn't even on the list because he's not even a starter. He's making almost $28 million a year to be a backup, more than Tom Brady and Drew Brees to sit on the bench behind Phillip Rivers. Think about that right now. People are throwing money around to quarterbacks like nobody's business. Jared Goff and Jacoby Brissett are making more money than Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. Now, I will say I also left off Mitchell Trubisky. He's not included simply because I wouldn't pay him any amount of money. If I had Mitchell Trubisky on my team, he's cut tomorrow. He's not my starting quarterback. I would never, ever. Mitchell Trubisky is the worst starting quarterback, and he drives me nuts. Blake Bortles and Mitchell Trubisky are some of the most infuriating people I've ever watched on film. I hate watching Mitchell Trubisky. He makes so many obvious mistakes that I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't pay him any amount of money. He'd be off my team. Now, think about this. 4 top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in 2020 didn't even make the playoffs last year. Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and Jacoby Brissett. None of them made the playoffs last year, and they're going to be in the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks this upcoming year. Now, Big Ben was hurt. That's fine. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, and Ryan Tannehill, all are being paid more than I would pay them. Over $30 million a year? No way. No, Ryan Tannehill, 29.5. I'd pay him 15, 18. He's solid. He did good. I want another year before I give him $30 million a year. But the quarterback market is getting insane. Like, it's outrageous right now. If I had to choose between paying Jared Goff $33.5 million or paying a rookie quarterback, Joe Burrow, Tua, a rookie contract, I'm taking Tua or Joe Burrow or Drew Lock or any of these names, these Sam Darnold, these young quarterbacks. I'd take Jalen Hurts today over Jared Goff at $33.5 million in a heartbeat. I believe in Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts isn't going to break my back and make it so I can't pay anybody else. If I could pay a bunch of incredible receivers and a good offensive line, I could make Jalen Hurts work in the NFL. And there are more good quarterbacks now today than ever before. And I really hope that having an oversaturated market in the NFL where we're having, look at the next couple of years. In like 4 years from now, we're going to have more quarterbacks than there are jobs in the NFL. You're going to have good quarterbacks. It's already started. Jameis Winston, maybe a starting quarterback. Marcus Mariota, maybe a starting quarterback in the NFL. They're both going to be backups potentially this year because the demand for quarterbacks is becoming lower than the amount of quarterbacks you have in the NFL. The market's getting oversaturated, and that's good for NFL teams because it's going to allow them to have more competition and be able to pay quarterbacks less. Okay, we can't get Andy Dalton, we'll pay Marcus Mariota instead. Does that make sense? I mean, Andy Dalton's a backup now. There are 3 guys who were starting last year who are not going to play next year, maybe at all. Mariota, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, 3 starters who are quality, like solid, okay quarterbacks that I pay $10 million a year to be my quarterback that aren't going to play because there's just so many quarterbacks in the NFL right now. But again, I want to repeat this. I would only pay a quarterback $30 million or more if they were elite. If they could win with less. Can you win with bad teammates or average teams, an average roster around you? Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, they can win with a bad offensive line. Carson Wentz made the playoffs throwing to nobody. That's what elite is. I'm only paying you more if I can get away with paying other people less. And in my mind, there are only 4 quarterbacks that I would pay $30 million or more. Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz, and Deshaun Watson. That's it. And I believe that soon Lamar Jackson and or Kyler Murray are going to join that group of 4. I think both Kyler and Lamar are special. We'll look at them moving forward. But that's it. The vast majority of the NFL playing the quarterback position, the vast majority of quarterbacks in the NFL are being disgustingly, grossly, massively overpaid. And I get it. You need a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you're screwed. But I don't think the answer is paying Ryan Tannehill almost $30 million a year, or Jacoby Brissett, or Jared Goff. Pretty soon, there's going to be other answers you can have, and those are the guys. The other answers are the people I would rather pay Jalen Hurts $1 million to be my starting quarterback tomorrow than I would ever want to pay Jared Goff $33.5 million. That's insanity to me. I would never do that. Never, ever, 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 ever do that. Because Jared Goff is destroying your franchise and making it so you can't pay anybody else.